Thank you, Ken.
Okay, get myself all set up and comfortable. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a good day there in between our courses, and we're back here for our next session. We're going to continue on where we kicked off there. The first session was a good one, general overview of road safety auditing, what it is. We're going to start to drill down a little bit now. We're going to talk about the steps within a road safety audit. And then we're going to start talking about specific road users and some of their needs. And again, we're sort of doing this at a broad level from that perspective of how do you do an audit, how do you do the process of auditing, and a few insights into that. You know, what are the kind of things auditors pick up, but not giving you everything you need to know, because that's sort of an ongoing task. So you'll remember at the end of last session, and I was a little bit rushed at the end, but we talked about these different stages of audit, okay? So these are the stages within a project. So you know, the construction, you know, your road upgrade project or whatever it is, they come up with this, you know, high-level idea of it. You do that feasibility design audit at that stage. They put a bit more meat on the design. And that's a preliminary design stage or concept design stage audit. Then they do the full detailed design set, and they get the long sections, the cross sections, the drainage plan, the pavement plan, the signals plans, all of these, you know, lots and lots and lots of detailed stuff. And that's your detailed design audit when you get all of that stuff. Then they come up with a traffic management plan and a traffic guidance scheme, and you might do a road safety audit on that. Is that going to operate safely? And then, you know, works are finished, and just before they cut the ribbon, if it's a brand new bit of road, is the pre-opening audit, or if it's a brownfield site, so the road upgrades and they've somewhat kept, you know, traffic live. Often the pre-opening can be a post-opening, or it's somewhere in that very close to finished or just live to traffic. You're doing that audit to check everything was put down right, no new issues have emerged during their construction, everything is operating nicely. And then we have those existing road audits. Now, a lot of jurisdictions call that existing conditions road safety audit many, many different things. They might call it a road safety check, a road safety diagnostic, a road safety review. I think of any others that come to mind from different countries around the world. They're sort of some of the main ones. Some jurisdictions call them the road safety audit, existing conditions. And yeah, I mean, again, you're using the same process. You're just not looking at the designs. You're just looking at what's currently there. And we have those thematic road safety audits, being the audit where you particularly put a lens to look at the safety of a specific road user, be that a pedestrian, a cyclist, a motorcyclist. It's the theme of that audit. And I'll talk you through that a little bit more. So this session, we know there's those stages of audit. What we want to talk about now is within each one of those stages, whichever one you're asked to do as a road safety auditor, you follow 8 steps, and it's usually the same 8 steps, whichever audit type stage you're doing. So whichever one of those you're asked to do, you follow these 8 steps, and we're going to go through those 8 steps and point you at where you can find some further information. So that's one thing I want to cover today, and then the next thing we'll do is delve into pedestrians. As per usual, please pop your questions into the chat or comments into the chat. Max is behind the scenes monitoring those. He'll answer questions where he can immediately, or he'll feed some through to me. Or if you want to make a comment, we can go from there. Okay, let's have a look here. We've got road safety. So it's a fairly straightforward process to undertake a road safety audit. It's got these 8 main steps, and I'm going to take you through those one at a time, and we'll flesh them out. They do take time. Road safety audits take a bit of time. They're not a quick little check of an exercise. There's time. They do add value to the project, and they really should be an integral part of any design process of anything that's interacting with the road environment of any size, really. Now, just a little one chance to give away a prize. If anybody can see anything that they think might be a bit odd about this sign we see there. It's a sign from Victoria. You can tell because Ballarat and Warrenheip, they're Victorian towns. So if anybody notices anything in that, I'll come back to that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But just a little chance to win a prize there. Okay, so these are the steps, and this is out of the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6A, and you see the steps there, and also it's got there, who is responsible for this step, these steps. And so the steps are: select the audit team, and that's the responsibility of the client, the designer, the project manager, whoever it is. They've got some ownership of this project that they're planning, be it a new set of traffic signals or a big duplication. They select the audit team. Now, in practice, they sort of go out to a consultancy often or the like, and it's sort of put together that way. I'll go through each of these in a bit more detail shortly. Provide all the information, so the information is handed over. There's often some sort of commencement meeting to discuss the project, clarify it, any questions. The documents are looked at, so the designs and any documentation, and then there is a site inspection during the daytime and the night. An audit report is written. A completion meeting of some description or a handover of information is done, and a response to the road safety audit report is done, and then the changes are implemented into that project. So let's go through these one at a time. First thing is that selecting of the audit team. Now, this is slightly different, the requirements, depending on the jurisdiction you're in, but I'm going to talk to you about what Austroads puts forward at the moment. And that's that the audit team as a senior road safety auditor or somebody, team leader as such, who is an experienced road safety auditor. A lot of jurisdictions use the term a senior road safety auditor. Some use a level 3, they have different levels of auditor, but it's your experienced auditor. And then other road safety auditors, or they could have multiple senior auditors, but somebody's got to take that team leader responsibility. You can have others in your audit team if they're not necessarily qualified road safety auditors, but we'd call them an observer or possibly a trainee. So technically the client's responsible for appointing the team of individuals, and the client is within their right to point out the individuals. They will often just go to a consultancy or something like that and say, can we please have a road safety audit? The consultancy will put together a team from within their resources. It's important, I think, that everybody understands what this road safety audit is. And you may think, well, that they're purchasing it. Surely they understand. Don't be too sure. Often they've been told they have to do a road safety audit, so ensuring that in any responses to requests for audits, you do lay out a bit of information about the process. I think that's quite important. Okay, a couple of little tips from me. The Austroads Guide really says that a team should be it should be auditing in teams, and that almost never use a one-person audit team, but then they do sort of give a little bit of leniency there for a small project or a very low-risk project. Ensuring everybody's independent. We talked about independence and the importance for independence, and stress that again, that you want people independent of the project, and that only a senior road safety auditor should be leading the team, somebody with that experience. The tip number 4, if you can do it, is to get a nice sort of variety of experiences, professions, ages, sexes, and focus on different road users. Ideally, you have this quite diverse team, and you're getting all sorts of views on different things, and you come out with a rich sort of set of ideas and findings and the like. Now, in practice, often it's very hard to pull together this very diverse team. I mean, this one I've got here as an example. We were doing a road safety audit there, and it was the sort of 4 of us there. The 3 of us there were the audit team originally, and we decided, we're all engineers that have worked for a long time in road authorities, male, about the same age. Well, we're really not getting much different views on things. I mean, I think we do a pretty good job, but we asked Wendy to come along, and Wendy, a female, a different age bracket. She is a scooter rider, so she rode the route, and we got that, very different perspective from her, which added richness and value to our audit. So that kind of stuff's good. As I say though, like time constraints, budget constraints of the audit, and different bits and pieces, often you don't have that luxury. So then you have a look at the documents. And as I mentioned, if you're doing a detailed design stage audit, you might get hundreds of pages of design reports, different documents and the like, and you sort of spend your time wading through that. You might apportion it out to people with expertise in different areas, but everybody's sort of getting a feel for it. And you inspect the site, and you go there during the daytime and the nighttime. And again, the Austroads guide gives you a little bit of a get out clause there at the nighttime, but it stresses that it's a very important thing to do, and it should be rare not to do it. Now, the reality is here, you are at the request of your client. And if your client says no nighttime inspection, you don't need to do a nighttime inspection. It's their choice. Hopefully they've made that choice with good knowledge of advantages and disadvantages. To be honest, if a client says to me no nighttime inspection, I'll often with the team, just do the nighttime anyway, just because it's not a huge amount of extra cost. And I think, once in a while you pick up something pretty important at night. Sometimes you do feel like an idiot sitting in the standing in a paddock at 10 at night in daylight savings time, where the bypass is going to go, scratching your head, wondering whether this is really worth it. But if you're at the tie-in point where that bypass is going to enter into the main road, and you've got a set of some lights in the distance that look like the road might go a certain way, then you go, hey, hang on, that's actually maybe worth us being out here at this hour. Max.
Just talking about that relevance, actually, I had a road safety audit yesterday, and last night when I inspected it, brand new pedestrian crossing. It was a wombat crossing, so a raised zebra crossing with new luminaires installed. During the day looked perfect. At night, luminaires weren't switching on. So luckily we did do that night inspection, because at nighttime it's not very safe to be crossing that priority pedestrian crossing, because it's not very easy to see if you're a motorist. So very relevant.
Live example. Okay. Speaking of wombats, don't forget to look for Wally and count your Wallies. So during that nighttime inspection, Max has pointed out a really good one. So, what is the lighting around the area? I sort of pointed out another one. Yeah, again, it's light related. The lights might create visual deceit, seeing something in the distance. This one, for example, or this one's slightly different. You can see North Croydon, very obvious in the day. There it is at night. You lost sign retroreflectivity. Looks like the state route marker must be a sticker over the top, recently added. It certainly stands out. So yeah, you might see that, those sort of things. The other thing is occasionally land use changes at night, and certainly your nightclub districts and those sorts of things. You're doing audits around there. You'd want to certainly see it at night, and alterations in activity and how areas are used. Maybe taxis queue in a different area, and so you're getting a good feel for it. Now, I didn't forget about my question. Max, did anybody come up with any ideas on what?
A few responses there, Ken. Jamie, roundabout is the wrong way around, or the symbol of the roundabout from AIM is the wrong brake. A few other people identified the brake in the roundabout or the opening in the sign. We also had a no entry sign missing to the left. So, and Paul's just added in the road is mixed in with place names. So we've got a few different options there. Is anything there ringing bells with you, Ken?
Well, I like all of that. But I'm going to give the prize to the person who said that the brake is in the wrong spot, because that's particularly what I'm interested in. I hadn't even noticed from the sort of 10 years that I've been using this that they put a road name and then place names as well. I suppose it's interesting, isn't it? You don't need to be told you're at the bottom of that sign, do you? We know we're at the bottom of that sign, and we're probably on Tea Tree Road. Yeah. Anyway, nonetheless, the brake is in the wrong spot. Okay. But I reckon some of you are probably scratching your head as to whether we actually have brakes in roundabout signs. You've probably driven past tens of thousands in your life, and have you noticed the brake? And sorry, I should say that's for Australians and New Zealanders. Some other countries occasionally don't have brakes, but most countries it's fairly uniform that they will have a brake in the roundabout sign to indicate your direction to travel around the roundabout. Now that is what a roundabout brake should look like. But the question I've got really though is this a road safety issue? And to be honest, I go, they could put that sign out there, which they obviously did, and I don't think it's like the risk of that incorrect sign brake being the sort of a cause of a crash is pretty low, right? But then I sort of go, well, when would it possibly be a little bit more of a risk? And this is how it relates back to the auditing course, because you need to contextualize things that you see out there. So I'll put that to you. When would it be a little more of a risk to get that one wrong compared to, if it's right? But pop any ideas down there. And Max, tell me if anybody, I should open up the chat myself so I can read along. But
got Jamie answering drivers from other countries, or perhaps in areas where you have higher likelihood of foreign drivers, possibly near an airport, near airport locations or international drivers, or particularly for right-hand side drivers. So certainly seems to be an area of international concern there, Ken.
Yes, and everybody there would be worthy of a prize, but I'll let you, Max, pick maybe somebody who hasn't got a prize yet, and others get involved. You don't lose any marks for chucking an idea down. So pop it in. Yes, people have thought about that very well, and it's about understanding that, okay, a driver out in Ballarat is probably, and if this is not a really popular tourist area, is probably going to know what they're doing. They've been driving. They've got there by driving lots of, roundabouts at the start. It's going to be fine. A little bit higher risk, potentially with this one down for our Hobart friends. Hobart International Airport. This is the first roundabout that you hit out of the rental car facility. And yeah, as people mentioned there, the risk goes up a bit. I still don't think it's a huge risk, but it's certainly it's gone up significantly compared to the other one, in the sense that yes, you might be an international driver, you might be somebody who comes from one of those countries that don't like or use roundabouts and drive on the right-hand side of the road, like the USA, although they're starting to get excited about roundabouts, and that's good. It just elevates the risk a little bit, and Grace makes a good point in there, I see, about learner drivers as well. And yeah, so this is all stuff, and we're trying to make it the road tell the correct story, and it's certainly not doing that there. So luckily that one got fixed fairly quickly after I ran the audit course in Hobart and used this as an example. So I've got to get the after photo of that. Maybe our friends there next time we're at the airport take a snap of that one for me. Okay, the whole point of that little discussion was it's interesting, it's fun traffic engineering trivia to know that you've got the gap and where it should be, but it's also to show that sort of link between contextualizing errors and then scaling your risk accordingly. Okay, so then you write the audit report, and there is a set way to write an audit report. And you want a description of the project and the stage you're doing, a list of the information you were provided. And I cannot stress enough the importance of putting that with any designs that you get, especially. You need to put the number and the version and the date of that design into your audit. The reason for this, and trust me on this, is when you find yourself in court, coroner's court or in court because there's a legal battle, and you were part of the audit team, you want to be damn sure of what you audited and have proof that if they fundamentally changed what you as a team audited, that you didn't miss stuff as an audit team, it got changed. And that certainly happened on a number of occasions. So you want to be very just clear with that. And it will really, hopefully you won't ever find yourself in those positions, but if you do, you cover yourself very well. And I certainly have been in some of those positions and been just going, what was built is so far from what we audited that we can't really be expected to have identified those issues, which were completely new designs, essentially. So you list the team members, the dates the audit was carried out. Some people like to even put the weather conditions when they were out there, a logically arranged list of safety issues that you have identified. And here's a table of contents that sort of meets all of those requirements. And to make your life super easy and to get consistency in industry, we've provided you with a Word document of a road safety audit that meets all the requirements, and it's yours to rebrand, to use however you want. Take it, copy words if you want. We're not precious about that sort of stuff. We want consistency and we want correctness in the bits that are covered. So you've got that in your memory stick and it's in Moodle, and download it and use it. And in fact, you will be producing a road safety audit report in this course based off it. So you'll be getting a little bit of practice of this. Some sort of completion meeting. Now, in reality, like most of the time, except for sort of sometimes big projects or the like, the completion meeting really isn't done as an email or sometimes a phone call, but just saying, here's the report, let me know there's any issues. And that's, clients receiving that who know what they're receiving and know what to do with it. It's all fine. But sometimes a actual formal sit down, when we used to be allowed to sit down together, or maybe on Zoom, that you have that, you can talk through, you can debate the findings, you can have a bit of a chat about different things. Then the client, whoever's received that report, has to go through each of those findings and say what they are going to do about it. Now, the responsibility of the road safety auditor has ended, I drew the line not quite where I wanted, ended there. Right? You've handed over your report of advice, and it is advice. You've gone, there you go, designer or project manager or the like, here is our advice. They do not then respond to you. Okay? It's not your responsibility to check that they're doing things. It's not your responsibility to say, yes, I approve that response to that finding. That's them. That's their stuff to do. Okay. As an auditor, I love getting the final product where they've said, yeah, we're going to do this one, and this one, but we can't do this. Instead, we're going to do this. And, I like to see that, but it's not required. Auditors have no legal power to enforce anything. We are advice providers, and that is it. And it's their project. They can do what they want with it. But we do hope that there is an intention to implement changes and any agreed changes. And if there's never an intention to change anything, well, we're really just going through a tick box exercise, and we're just wasting resources and time and effort. So as I mentioned there, it's given to the project manager via email, usually. Keep file copies as an auditor, and certainly those receiving it, project managers, should keep that. Respond in writing to all the recommendations in the audit report to keep on your file. This is for the project manager or the designer or the like. It's nice to give it back to the auditor, but you don't have to do that. Now, the thing is, responding to the audit report is so critical, but it's often overlooked. And different legal friends or colleagues often talk about this one as the smoking gun if there's an incident. If there's an audit report and it's got no responses to it, it's been, we had to, the road authority said we had to do a road safety audit, or, they said we had to do a road safety audit. We've done the audit. They get it. They put it in the file. They never responded to the report, said what they were going to do or not do, and it's just sitting there. And so that's a pretty dangerous place to be in. It really has to be an integral part of an organization's process to respond to those audit findings and change the project accordingly. So when you're responding, if you are one of those people that receives a road safety audit report, remember these few things, little things. It may become public, your responses, so you want to just have a little bit of a think about your wording in case the freedom of information comes through and takes that, or there's a legal case and your documents are taken, and it does happen. It can happen. It's good practice to respond to the audit team as well, just to keep them in the loop. It's nice. It's not absolutely required. So a common misconception, and I've sort of covered this, but if you're the project manager and you receive this, the misconception is that you must do everything that audit says. And the real thing is, no, you don't have to. It is your project. You decide what you do. Okay? But think of it in the context that you've been given expert advice on risk, and you should be thinking about then how you manage that risk. And the auditor has hopefully given you some ideas on how you might be able to do that, but you're not bound to do their ideas. You can do whatever you want. But the little extra tip I've got in here is that if you flat out disagree with a road safety audit finding, absolutely your prerogative, right? You can do that. But just justify that quite well. Again, you sort of hate to think about these worst case scenarios, but if you're in court again and you've got an audit on the table there, and the audit has come up with a finding and risk rated it and made a recommendation, and your response is, I disagree with this, we're not doing anything. The prosecuting lawyers have a bit of fun there, because they ask you what your road safety expertise is, and then they drill into that in a lot of detail. And why do you think you have better knowledge than the qualified road safety auditor? You know, that sort of, you can imagine the scenarios. You don't, you know, it's very unlikely you will ever find yourself in that scenario, but it's important that you sort of put things together in a way that are reasonable. Those are the 8 steps to go through, and I hope you picked up a few little things there. Also, sorry, I should have said, you are right within your right as a project manager to disagree with the audit finding or disagree with the way that they have recommended you reduce the risk of that issue. So you might go, yeah, I agree that's a road safety issue. I'll use some ridiculous extreme example. 2 local streets. The auditor's gone slight distance issues or speed issues or like. Recommendation, grade separate the intersection. Right? You go, I agree that there's an issue here, but grade separation is going to cost $28 million. We are doing a small local government upgrade to this intersection. So you can go then, agree this is an issue. The resources to grade separate are far beyond what we could ever afford. We will reduce the risk through these measures which directly address those concerns. Now, of course, you're not going to get something that ridiculously extreme, but it comes to the same point with other issues. All right, Max, anything people want to talk about or share there before I talk about our first particular road user?
No, things are chugging along well here, so feel free to continue going. Okay, well, I'm just going to change over the PowerPoints. I do have a session at the end of the course on, so this is in module 6, on legal liability, on registration as a road safety auditor. I can remember I said senior auditor, and what is a senior auditor, and what's these sorts of things. I cover off sort of that sort of stuff, and policies around, when should you possibly do road safety audits? Are you going to do a road safety audit if you're, repainting the line marking of a local street? Is that worth it or not? If it's like for like, how many stages do you audit in a project? If it's a new splitter island, do you do 5 stages of audits on that job? Well, no, you'd end up spending more on audits than the job. I don't know, that's a bit extreme, you wouldn't, but I'll go through all of that in module 6, and we have plenty of time packed in to that with for discussion. So if you want to bring questions, if you're in a local government, you want to know, we don't have a policy, what would you suggest in that, and those sort of things, we can have all those conversations. Now, where am I here? Sorry, bear with me. I'm just trying to. Sorry, Max. Let's see what. Aha, I'm back. Share screen. Sorry about that. I lost Zoom for a second there. All right, so part of the requirements of a road safety audit course, as Austroad sort of sets in the syllabus for a road safety audit course, is for us to give insights into particular road users. So we look
at pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, heavy vehicles, and of course cars as well. I say of course cars because they are still representing the bulk of trauma. Often, you've got the pedestrian and the car involved, of course. So what we do really now is sort of go through each of those. Jamie Robinson, our technical lead, will come through. He'll talk about trucks in the context of sort of detailed design, but as well talking a little bit about a few other things. But I'm going to kick it off with pedestrians. Pedestrians being our biggest road user group by numbers, by vehicle kilometres travelled, or amount travelled, not quite there, but certainly are there, and everybody, essentially everybody, is a pedestrian in one way or another at some point in their journey. So for this little module, I want to just run through the requirements of pedestrians for safe travel, point you at some technical information regarding infrastructure for pedestrian safety, identify common road safety audit issues for pedestrians, and understand some terminology around pedestrian infrastructure. Okay, 4 road users at greatest risk. I'll let you tell me who those are. Let's see what comes in. Max, we can give out some prizes here. What a prize frenzy.
All groups of pedestrians at greatest risk. Children, aged, blind, children, disabled, people with disabilities, elderly, drunk. There we go. Yep. They're flowing through.
And we've covered them all.
We've got them all. There you go.
We've got them all.
All pedestrians. That's a good one.
All pedestrians. It is a good one, actually. Pedestrians are at great risks. So
cyclists.
Cyclists are not pedestrians.
They've got their own category in our thinking.
They've got their own category. They are a pedestrian when they're walking to their bike and when they're walking away from their bike. No, but let's go through them. So we've got the elderly, the young, the disabled, and the intoxicated. So Max, you can work out who gets prizes for first in with each of those. Looks like you've got a lot to work through. So the elderly certainly at greatest are at higher risk due to their slower cognitive processing, their ability to move quickly away from things, and their frailty. The young, again, it's cognitive processing ability. So there's some, commonality there, the ability to process information, to make judgments on gaps and the like. Also, they've got this extra one of darting and being small and hidden behind stuff. So that's the other one. Disabled in terms of pure numbers of those disabled, injured or killed as pedestrians is relatively low, but as a sort of percentage of travel and those sorts of things is quite high, and it's due to not being able to get up curbs, sometimes being trapped in areas, having to go to other dangerous locations. But far and away, so vision impaired, I sort of put in that disabled category. Some sort of challenge in vision or being able to move around in the way that able-bodied are. But far and away, our biggest group for death and serious injury are intoxicated pedestrians. And this becomes a very interesting one for us as road safety practitioners, and especially when we consider things through our safe system lens. The easiest thing would be to say, well, they shouldn't get drunk and walk out on the road, and it's their, not taking things into their, they're not taking their own safety into their hands, and it's, inappropriate, and I don't like it. Well, I mean, that's sort of what we need to say is that's happening. They have a heightened time of risk, and we often know that the areas that these will be happening. And we really do, I suppose, as road safety auditors, need to acknowledge that, think about it. What could we do with the infrastructure, the speeds, the way things are configured to try to lessen that risk? And there's been some pretty exciting things, I think, done in that space over the years. One of you, and I don't remember who it was, will be doing a little research assignment on one of my absolute sort of favorite intoxicated pedestrian risk management tools called Dwell on Red or Rest on Red, depending on where you come from. And that's really, I'll explain it. I think I've got time to run through this. Max, it's your fault if we go over time, by the way. Here's my little Rest on Red scenario. So we've got a signalized intersection. That's signalized? Yep. So it's got signals around. Now, let's just say that this is in a township, an area that has a very, very big bypass. So all the freight's going through that and all and the like. And this used to be the main highway, but it got bypassed 30 years ago, so it's really not. And we've got a pub on this corner. We've got a nightclub on this corner. We've got a 24-hour KFC on this corner. A Savlaki place on this corner, maybe, whatever it is. And Friday night, Saturday night, what we see in this area is just high risk-taking behavior from intoxicated pedestrians. We see people, fighting, rolling out of the pub and, goes to the nightclub, running over to the KFC, chasing each other, all sorts of stuff going on like that. Now, a Dwell on Red or a Rest on Red basically says, well, during those hours, maybe we'll make it from 7 o'clock Friday night till 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Saturday morning, and the same again on Saturday to Sunday morning. We're just going to rest all traffic lights on red. Okay? All directions see red lights. And the only way they see a green is to come up to the loops in the signals, wait for it to drop to green, and then it drops immediately straight back to red. So we slow every vehicle down. We're basically saying this area is high risk at this time, and we're going to slow you down. And if you're trying to get through here fast, go use the bypass or go use another route. But let's go through it. I like that kind of smart tweaking and the use of our infrastructure and the acknowledgement that we need to protect the intoxicated pedestrians where we can, and not just blame and say you shouldn't do it and the like. I'm not saying we don't need to do work on that societally and certainly try to work with the venues for responsible service of alcohol and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying ignore that, but I'm saying we need to play our part and try to think about things that way. Another one I tried to do at Vic Roads when I was there, and this one didn't get through, although it got surprisingly high up in the organisation before it was hit on the head, so we had school speed zones. I wanted to introduce zoned out zones. That's what I termed them. And they were your Chapel Street precinct, your Johnson Street precinct, where we know that they were highly, there was a high amount of trauma at times where it was just, everybody was out partying and drinking and taking drugs. And so I was like, well, these people are not zoned in. So we got to slow the speeds down for them. Anyway, it got up there. It didn't get through. I don't know. Intoxicated pedestrians don't seem to have the appeal to protect as children do. I think you can work out the reasons why people like to turn to blame in those situations. Anyway, I've gone way down a tangent rabbit hole and I'm pulling myself back up. 3 basic strategies for pedestrian safety: segregation, separation, and integration. So these are sort of general ways we categorize how you can address pedestrian safety issues. So I'll go through them one at a time. Segregation really is to say, pedestrians, you have that space, cars, you have that space, and not shall you ever mix. And freeways are a classic example of that, where we try to keep pedestrians off the freeway, and if they're getting onto the freeway for some reason, we try harder to not let them onto the freeway or provide them overpasses and other features. There's a big freeway there. I don't know how many lanes across it is, but
that photo makes me sad. That's just, it's a lot of tarmac.
It is a lot of tarmac, but here's a little fun one. Actually, I'll give you a prize for the person who can tell me what country that's in, and it will surprise you, I reckon. I reckon it'll surprise you, Max, unless you already know.
I don't know. I'm not allowed to guess, though, am I?
Yeah.
We've got a guess of China, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan.
These are all good. These are all good guesses, and what you might expect.
Germany.
You might get too long if we go. There it is. Paul got it.
Canada.
It's Canada. Yeah.
Okay. Well done, Paul. Incredible,
isn't it? You don't think of the Canadians as running with that.
I was nervous that the answer was Australia, but thankfully that's not the case.
Well, just you wait, Max. We did the safe system assessment on Northeast Link. There is a spot with 22 lanes across.
Oh boy. With maybe a 3 metre wide shared path for cyclists, but the rest is for cars.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole different topic. We won't get into that one. But this one would make you more happy. The segregation also works the other way, where we create the pedestrian mole, the area that's only pedestrians, it's pretty obvious stuff, I think. Separation in time is really that bit of road gets used by different road users at different times, and your pedestrian crossings are your classic example. It's road for vehicles at one point, it's pedestrians, and your school crossings, obviously, the same. So these crossings still the same. So anybody know the official name? I'm giving out prizes here. Anybody know the official name for a crossing where you can go that way or that way or that way, I suppose?
I'll end with a scramble or end with a Barnes crossing.
Yeah, I would give Eng the prize there. Ends onto it. A Barnes dance. Or a Barnes crossing. Barnes dance must have been invented by a Mr. or Mrs. Barnes or Mr. or Miss Barnes in somewhere. But yeah, that's what it's officially called. It's often more referred to as a scramble crossing of the line. But again, just separation in space there. It's in time and space. So we've got the footpaths, refuge islands are great as well. And now back to a bit more road safety auditing thinking. Okay, the classic road safety audit finding is that the design does not provide enough storage space for pedestrians. And so you can see here a sort of classic refuge island design, and you'll see different ones and 2 metre desirable median. And you can look to standards and guidelines to help you as an auditor, calibrate whether this is meeting what people generally require. But a very sort of simple rule of thumb as an auditor on this is that going to be enough space for a father or a mother pushing a pram to not have to decide whether they or their child is in live traffic? Another one is, you know, a bicycle. Can a bicycle be propped in there with enough space not to have wheels in the truck? So you've got to think about that. Think about that storage, and think also about our pedestrians. And we do define those in mobility devices as pedestrians as well. If you've got those, you know, can they prop? Can they get up onto curbs and the like? Or are we building or providing dangerous situations? Another form of separation that is quite interesting as an auditor is a pedestrian overpass. So a pedestrian overpass, you know, in one sense, you go as the ultimate. I mean, this is wonderful, completely separated. But as an auditor, you're charged with making some judgment calls on, will people use it? And who won't use it? And what dangerous things are going to happen if they're not using it? Or what things are we not addressing? Because I mean, these ones are sort of an interesting example where you have these very long ramps to go up, and up we go, eventually across, and, you know, you're down there. Some people will use it, but a lot won't use it. So, you know, are we getting the benefit from that? And can you, as an auditor, suggest design changes or other ways that these things could be better utilized? Yeah, but don't think that as soon as you see a pedestrian overpass, job done, no pedestrian issues at all. Very much not the case. And those from other countries, there's always cultural nuances with pedestrian overpasses. And it's a fascinating thing if you ever work in some other countries to try to understand that. I mean, some cultures have it that only certain people are allowed to use it in their mind, or that, you know, you don't go up there because one reason or another, and, you know, pedestrian underpasses, and you've got to think about, you know, personal safety and will people use it, or are they worried that they're going to get mugged or the like, and how do they get designed? So it's quite an interesting single example of those cultural nuances. But every country you work in, you need to recalibrate your road safety thinking of what works and what doesn't. Now, a question for the Australians, is this a sign that we use in Australia, a shared zone? Can call it a shared zone. Do we use this? Is this a regulatory sign? No prizes for that one, because the answer is yes, and I think it's probably coming in.
Yes, at Bunnings.
At Bunnings. Yeah, well, they are used a bit in some car park style areas, but there's some design guidance around what, if you are trying to create a shared zone. Well, let me take a step back. The regulatory meaning of a shared zone is that pedestrians have priority over vehicles throughout that area. Okay, so a pedestrian can walk across this area in front of a car at any point in this area, and they have priority. There is some engineering design guidance out there in a number of different documents that talks to you about how to create a shared zone. And there's one little way that I think of this, and it sort of sums the whole thing up to me really nicely in a small sort of theme. But can somebody have a few guesses of that? What would you put as sort of overarching design guidance for a shared zone? And it's a bit more than just low speed if you want to
Michael, with raised pavements, or Carl needs to look visually different.
Give Carl a prize. Give Carl.
Yes.
Keep us moving on. I mean, I think I'm having a look at different things coming in. They're sort of practical ways that you can achieve Carl's great idea, which is essentially the guidance is make it not look like a road. Okay, and if you keep that clear in your mind, if you're auditing a proposed shared zone or an existing shared zone, it's just say, does this look like a road? And if you say yeah, it looks like a road, it's probably not a great shared zone. And the reason for that is it's not really reinforcing to the driver that they have to give way to pedestrians. The best shared zones is a shared zone where if you drive that shared zone, you look around and you're like, am I even allowed to be driving here? That is a good shared zone. And I mean, there's some good examples. I like Bendigo's got a great bit of shared zone in their CBD, and you're driving along and there's a fountain that's popping up near you, and there's car parking's all sort of staggered, and you just like, it's cobbled, and you're like, oh, I don't even know if I'm meant to sort of be here. And what a wonderful, like, that's good. That's a good shared zone. And here's one which has some good characteristics and then some that are not so good. I mean, this is down in Sale in Eastern Victoria, and we've got the shared zone sign. They've put a supplementary sign there, give way to pedestrians, not required, because that is the road rules, but they're sort of probably acknowledging that a lot of our driving community have a license but don't know all the road rules, and that they're not 100% sure that in their shared zone they would have to do that. So they've done that supplementary. What I like is that they've made it different to the asphalt colour approaching it. I like the fact that they've removed curbs, and so it looks different. What I'm a little bit disappointed with, I think it could be a little bit better. They've gone and line marked it like a road, and then they've lined their parking up in a road-like manner. So it's still retaining a few of those characteristics. So I'm not sure it exactly work, but it's not too bad. They've done some speed calming in there as well. So that's interesting. But let's dive in really now specifically at what you as a road safety auditor, when you come out of this, are going to be looking for with pedestrian safety. But I think we're almost exactly halfway through, Max. I might give an opportunity for people to have a stretch, to fill up a water, use the bathroom if they need. So what do you reckon, Max? 3.5 minutes or so?
That sounds good. I'll monitor the clock.
Okay, have a little break and I'll come back and we'll jump into it. Right, tell me when to get back into it, Max.
Just one more minute there, Ken. I was just thinking, the Stewart Street in Richmond, do you know if that's a shared zone or is that 30 km/h? I'm trying to remember.
It's a shared zone.
I might share my screen if that's right, and I'll show those who are still with us. Have a quick look at Stewart Street, because that's a pretty cool example.
It's an interesting one. It's trying to do it at a lower cost than your usual, cobblestoning and the like. But
which screen did that just share?
yeah, no, we can see it. Yep. Well, we can see the web page.
Here's the very vibrant pavement markings used. It doesn't quite look like a road anymore, I guess. It's certainly very colourful, and there is still the parking lane there, which might, obviously contribute to that road space, but certainly a big transformation as to what it used to look like, and definitely would have brought down operating speeds within the area.
I was going to say, Max, I was waiting for you to say something too bad about it, and then I was going to reveal that Reese and I did a road safety audit on it.
Did you have many findings for this one?
Actually, I think we've done 2 road safety audits on it. We did have some findings. We did recommend some speed calming devices, just because it wasn't. There was some different surface treatments done at different points, but not. We just worried a little bit about the speed and just ensuring that vehicles were going very slow through that bit.
Okay. Feel free to share your screen again. I think it's been the 3 minutes, Ken, so we can get cracking again.
Very good. I like having you there, Max, answering a few questions in the background. That's working very well. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen now. And we're back into auditing now, and very much thinking about what are the pedestrians, what are the risks? And here's the first sort of vivid classic example, pedestrian risk. So a slip lane has some challenges for pedestrians, and here we go in a slip lane, approaching a pedestrian crossing, but where are you looking as a driver? Of course, you're looking out to the right, aren't you? Because you want to put the foot down and get that gap in traffic. And if we've got a pedestrian coming out from here who has priority, they may not be paying as much attention to whether they can step out or not. And to, add to the risk profile here, we're blocking sight lines to the pedestrians on the approach. So kind of a somewhat perfect storm here. Now, there is a lot of industry chatter around slip lanes and pedestrians at the moment, and it's quite the topic of debate. And, they're talking about, should we get rid of slip lanes altogether? Should it only be raised crossings at slip lanes? Should it have to be signalised? And so there's good discussion, good debate out there. But just keep that in mind as an auditor, really, I'm using this as an example, but think about where drivers are looking and where they're traveling. And this is just generally a bad situation if you have that. Think also about where pedestrians will be standing and the swept path of larger vehicles. And swept path is a term, and Jamie will talk to you in detail about swept path analysis and having a look at those within designs and the like. But generally that's the tracking of a large vehicle. Anybody who's seen, no doubt, a large vehicle turning a corner, they often have to go wide in order not to encroach on that. And so where pedestrians are storing can be dangerous. And we saw recently in Melbourne a very tragic incident where not that old an intersection, a large vehicle sweeps around straight over pedestrians. And I mean the geometry of it meant that the pedestrians were storing where a large vehicle was going to track. So we need to be aware of that. This one looks okay, but are you getting the idea that they're sort of coming close? So as a road safety auditor, you're really looking, if it's a design, you'd be thinking about that. You'd be looking and saying, well, okay, they're planning to put curbs here, and then you maybe get some swept path analysis done and say, oh, okay, they're encroaching on these areas and that could be bad for pedestrians. Also, just the lack of facilities. A comment that has sometimes been made is, auditors sometimes miss things that aren't there, like because they're auditing what's there and not what's not there. But you've got to be in that mindset as well as what's not there. And this is sort of another one where this is an audit of an area that's becoming a truck alternate route of a town, and it doesn't have footpaths, it doesn't have pedestrian facilities, it's got some pedestrian activity, and in winter, and if it's muddy or it's foggy or somebody's pushing a pram or in a motorized mobility device, they have no real option but to be in the shoulder here. And so the lack of facilities is then our audit concern, our audit finding. And here's another example of that. Hang on, what do we got? Gap in the sign, gap in the roundabout, correct. There you go. You'll never drive past a roundabout sign again without checking the gap. I hope, it's a little minor thing, but people resonate. Okay, so there you go. Another one where we're having, elderly walking in the grass and, during winter or muddy or the like, we might be in a challenge. The next sort of term, and many of you will use this in your day-to-day activities, is pedestrian desire line. So pedestrian desire line is just simply the point A where the pedestrian is and the point B where they want to be and drawing a straight line to that. That is their desire line, right? Now, pedestrians are our road users least likely to deviate off their desire line. They do not like to do that. And here we've got pedestrian happily going along their desire line. And down here, we've had traffic engineer or somebody decide, no, I don't want them to do that. I want them to cross on the crossing. And as a road safety auditor, you need to be thinking about that and saying, well, okay, we're capturing a lot of them, but this one's going to walk along the road until they get to where they want to be. And that is actually quite a common thing when we're putting in pedestrian fencing. So my general take on pedestrian fencing, I'll come back to it actually, but this, I think, this is a sort of good example of where pedestrian fencing is not achieving what it's designed to do and may create a bigger risk by trapping pedestrians onto the road or corralling one out of a few onto the road. And here's a sort of desire line thing I saw on LinkedIn a while back, so I grabbed it because I thought it sums it up nicely, doesn't it? It's a design, that's user experience, because that's their desire line. And one of the Geelong City Council engineers told me that they sometimes build their parkland or whatever it is, and then they just wait then for the goat tracks to emerge, and then they pave those rather than paving areas and trying to tell pedestrians where to go, see what they want to do, and then off they go. And another pedestrian desire line there. Again, this one probably not causing much danger, but maybe just hiding pedestrians a little bit. But yeah, where they want to go. But back to pedestrian fencing. So I'm actually going to jump back here. Pedestrian fencing is a fascinating thing. And from a road safety audit perspective, you need to be making some pretty sound judgment calls based on that. My sort of rules around pedestrian fencing, and these are Ken's rules, these are not documented guidelines, but I don't like pedestrian fencing except for in a few isolated spots on the network. And one of them is outside pubs, nightclubs. Okay, and the reason for that is not to necessarily try to stop people crossing the road at that point, but it's actually to do with containing patrons that fall out or are fighting and come out of the establishment. And unfortunately, I've been expert witness on two cases, one with coroner and one was in another part of the legal system, where people have been killed in those circumstances, coming out of establishments not in control. So one was a fight sort of that was breaking out onto the street, and the other one was a bit unclear, but it just looked like sort of a staggering out. Now, again, you can turn to behavioural issues, or you can sort of look and say, pedestrian fence area really acts as a containment to that. And then the second place that I like them is around schools, for that similar thing with chasing a ball, roughhousing, or whatever it is, that you're using them more of as a containment facility rather than stopping that direct desire line. And yeah, so there are a couple of places I do like them, but be aware that we really do see often pedestrian fencing put in new areas, and we just see then people walking along the pedestrian fence on the roadside because that's where they want to go. As an auditor, the challenge you've got is to see a line on a bit of paper that's adding pedestrian fencing, understand maybe from your site visit and your knowledge of the area or the like, the desire line sort of from here and the shopping centres over there or the train stations over there, and that's going to be the desire line, and yeah, this could cause some issues. And then you can look to provide facilities for pedestrians at these. Okay, I've taken a group out to look at cyclist facilities at roundabouts and the like, and we were just sort of marveling at this strong pedestrian desire line across here, but no sort of facilities at all in terms of curb ramps or place for them to go. And even in larger schemes, you've got to remember that the pedestrian desire line is strong. I mean, if you have a community and you cut them off with a road from where their jobs are, where their shopping is, where they need to go, they will cross this road to do that. And we see this, obviously a different country, but we do see people, new roads often, separating communities like that, and then the pedestrian challenges come up, and we've got to think about that. Okay, I got a little example here. Talking about another sort of way we look at things as a road safety auditor, and I've got actually a few examples here of incidents that we've investigated for one reason or another. And it's about us learning a bit from these examples. So this is a road here, obviously a street. It's a sort of local government street, and the next photo is taken just behind that hazard marker there, just in at that spot. So this is, for now, this is what the driver's seeing, and this is what the pedestrians see. And so there's some characteristics of this that sort of draw the pedestrian into slightly believing they have priority. And in fact, it didn't take us long standing out there investigating the site to witness this, where the two gentlemen here just sort of walked straight out on the road, and this car sort of approached and nicely stopped, which was good to see. Unfortunately, we're out there because something happened and a car like this did not stop. Now, who has priority? Well, technically, the car has priority here. This is not a marked pedestrian crossing. So Michael's, got onto that just as I did. Max, you can give Michael a prize too. The car has priority technically under all of the road rules because it's not marked as a official pedestrian crossing, is it? So the theme, though, that I want you to always think about as a road safety auditor is what we call confusion of priority. So if there's things for the pedestrian to believe they have priority, about to a degree, it's visual deceit. It's not usually sort of termed that way from the pedestrian's point of view, but confusion of priority can be quite concerning. And again, most of the time things work out, but it's when they don't, it's a bit more problematic. We get ourselves in this very interesting state where we start to do things to try to highlight pedestrian crossing points and the like, but we don't sort of go that full way of giving the priority. Now, these ones always, I scratch my head a little bit, not in a good or a bad way in these ones, because this is obviously a crossing point. It's a T intersection. It's an arterial road. It's got the tram and the like. And the local government's doing their best to highlight the pedestrian crossing there and the like, but it's not given regulatory priority under the road rules, technically, in most jurisdictions in Australia. In fact, all jurisdictions in Australia, I think it is. Pedestrians actually have priority to that point. It's bizarre, isn't it? So any vehicle turning in, left or right, has to give way to pedestrians, but the vehicle coming out has priority. It's a strange thing. The question that I always say is, well, why are we not just providing a proper zebra crossing, or even better, a wombat crossing, a raised pedestrian crossing where pedestrians have priority? I mean, the real answer is that the State Road Authority is approving those, and they don't like to do it because they believe it will somehow impact on the traffic flow of the main road.
Just a quick one there from Jamie. Is that a raised threshold there? It's a bit difficult to see from the photo.
There is a raised element to this one. It's not a sort
little
of
hump, yeah.
Yeah, it's a sort of it's a bit of a threshold treatment, and they're moving things along, trying to make it more pedestrianised. That curb to curb, flat run through, and so there's some really good aspects. I just love to see this sort of stuff formalised as a pedestrian crossing, so the priority is clear. And anyway, I'm off on a little tangent. Here's another sort of threshold treatment, entry in, and I think there's some wonderful aspects to this, and then there's some interesting stuff again. So we've got here the bits that I love is that they're slowing vehicles turning in. They've even given a nice little prop area for a vehicle before they get to the hump. But then the thing is that the priority here is sort of technically for the vehicle. It's a bit unclear at this point who would have priority from a technical legal sense. Certainly through here, the car would have priority. And the thing is that this is not a pedestrian crossing. This is just a speed hump. But the thing is that would the pedestrians have that? Are there clues there that they might think, oh, this is a pedestrian crossing? Remember, they're not traffic engineers. They're not people like us who is every day. Just kind of looks like a crossing, and that off they go. Now, interestingly, this one, the auditor, the road safety auditor team, as I understand this, the audit came back, identified this confusion, suggested measures to reduce risk, and one of those measures was to change it from white, which originally planned, to a different color to reduce the confusion. I think we're giving a bit too much credit to the general public in their knowledge of what white and yellow mean in terms of specific nuances around sort of these bits and pieces. I think as auditors, we might be able to suggest slightly better things. I like ones where we can, clearly articulate the priority. It's pretty clear here, hopefully, that it is not priority for pedestrians because you have a very distinct change in colour, and the raised bit, that almost could be set back a little bit, which would be very clear. We've got the continuation of the center line. It's fairly clear. Or vice versa, we just make it a actual formalized crossing. So confusion of priority is a little bit of a challenge. This one from another airport. Airports could be they're a wonderful source of road safety audit course information, examples and the like. I think because they're not subject to any state road authority checks or balances, really. They build whatever roads they want, however they want, which causes some challenges. Max, is there a question before I just...
There's a good one from Bradley, and I might let you pop in your 2 cents before going on my own opinion on this, but is it normal practice to have pedestrian give-way crossings at both the entrance and exit legs at roundabouts? We've got plenty of them in Warrnambool, and there appears to be confusion as to who has to give way to whom when.
Really, really good question. Very topical. Yes, Warrnambool's roundabouts with crossings is hot topic down there in the southwest. It is certainly very much a growing practice in pedestrianised areas. I think Port Phillip really set off that a lot of fireworks and just started putting them out there around the South Melbourne market. And yes, I mean, common practice is that you can put them on the entry and exit, and often if you've put them on the entry, that's going to be the exit for another leg anyway. So yes, and really it gets to a point where higher level policy decision making around active transport takes priority, and you're saying in that area that your priority road user is a pedestrian. And Port Phillip does it in typical Port Phillip fashion and just says, we're going to put this in, and it's going to make things bad for a driver. So we suggest you walk or ride a bike. And like it really just says it all. That's their priority. They're going to make it safe for that road user. They're going to make it more accessible, and it's going to come at the cost of a road user they're not encouraging that in that area. I think it makes it fairly clear. Now, Warrnambool, has some different nuances in terms of a bit more of a need to have cars from different distances and be in there and those sorts of challenges. But if you are sort of doing that stuff, raising them can often be a wonderful treatment, or putting speed cushions on the approach to ensure speeds are very low. But yeah, I think that the lovely people down there at Warrnambool City Council are continuously looking and kind of make judgment calls on that. Anything you wanted to add to that, Max?
No, that was spot on. I completely agree. I've certainly seen them in the areas where you are trying to prioritise those pedestrian and cycling movements, and it's basically saying vehicles don't have the priority within this space. So let's make sure that our vulnerable road users are protected and they have the safest opportunity to cross and access those roundabouts.
Yeah, and if anybody is considering those and wants some more information, we do have quite a bit of info, designs, ramp grades, drainage considerations, and when you would and wouldn't do it, and those sorts of things, and risks to address, and lots of can point you at lots of different examples. As I mentioned, Port Phillip, Bendigo's got a few great ones. There's others popping up around the place and people designing them. So it's good stuff. So yeah, we've got this confusion of priority again, and lots of these things. Sometimes in some jurisdictions they're called courtesy crossings and the like. Really, simply, let's make it clear who has priority. Here again, legally, the vehicle would have priority, but it kind of encourages you and draws you out there, doesn't it? So in most states of Australia, in fact, all states of Australia, we're looking for the pedestrian legs as a key requirement, and the line marking as well. So here we've got some pedestrian legs, and some of them are good, and then some of them miss the line marking, so they don't quite meet the regulatory requirements there. But at least we're sort of starting to make it a bit clearer. So you want to see those pedestrian legs as well as the line marking. And yeah, interestingly on slip lanes, technically a pedestrian has priority through the whole slip lane in Australia, regardless of pedestrian crossing or not. But that's got to be the worst known road rule, even worse than shared zones, in my opinion. So that you walk up to a slip lane and no markings, no crossing point, you should walk. You should be able to walk out, and everybody gives way to you. I think people would not be doing that. And lots of examples where people aren't understanding the correct way to sign these. And again, some of them I don't see as major road safety issues, things we'd like to improve. Here we go. We've got people using the pedestrian crossing ahead sign as a way to show pedestrians where they should be walking. Is it a road safety issue? Probably not in this location. Is it incorrect? Yes, it's incorrect. But this one maybe brings up a bit more of a road safety issue, where we see vehicles approaching the pedestrian crossing just in the same location, really, just around the corner from this. And obviously whoever did the signing scheme here didn't quite have their head around what signs were meant to do. But they put the pedestrian crossing signs facing the pedestrians to tell them where to cross, as opposed to pointing at the vehicles, telling them that this is a pedestrian crossing location. So again, as a road safety auditor, post-opening audit, these are the kind of things we'd be wanting to pick up. You sort of do question how a sign installer is getting this wrong, but the reality is that they will get these things wrong, and we're another set of eyes to check that as auditors to try to ensure we're actually getting what we want in terms of safety out of new infrastructure like this. Now, this one's all correct. So there's nothing wrong here as such in terms of regulatory. It's got the crossing legs, it's got the markings. They've done a bit of sort of painting of the road here to try to, make it more lively, they're not trying to make it a shared zone. They're just trying to break up the sort of roadness look of it. Now, if you happen to be the one that was doing the road safety audit of this facility at the design stage, okay? So pretend there's no crossing, but you're coming in at the design stage, okay? And you're looking at the design of their curb out stands and their vegetation, and then their tactiles and the curb ramps and the crossing and the things. What small tweaks in this design do you think could be suggested as a road safety auditor to make it a bit safer? Now, there's a few things. So Raj has put in something there. I saw Max's when it just popped up. I could see that one out of the corner of my eye. Tell us why, Raj, there.
Landscaping to be relocated.
Yeah, I like that. But why will that improve safety? I'll give it a second for the typing fingers. How are we going on time, Max?
Yeah, we seem to be chugging along quite well, Ken.
I've got a little exercise for everybody to do. They're having to think about this one at the moment, but we will.
Raj has identified the overhanging branches, and Grace as well, vegetation pruning. Aaron is saying a stop line. Not quite sure where the stop line might come into effect. Lock pedestrian signage on both approaches, clearing obstructions on the left. Or get rid of the other transverse marking. Maybe it's a bit confusing within that carriageway. Anchor vegetation covers vegetation covers the ped crossing sign. Signage visibility to pedestrians, and Grace has also just mentioned the line marking being faded there as well.
Give Anchor a prize there if you can. Everything we're seeing there, everything I'm seeing there is good, and I'm happy with what's being said, but I particularly like that one because it's sort of this small tweak on the design, if you could get there, to pull the bin and the vegetation here to this side. The reason for that is that as you approach from this direction, the vegetation in the bin and everything just block the sight lines to pedestrians. And maybe we've got a smaller pedestrian about bin height sort of coming out here. And we just are for no particular reason blocking that sight line. Because, you can easily put that on the other side. So you can see there that really I couldn't imagine that would be any extra cost in the project. I cannot say that hand on heart for sure, but really just ensuring we've got open sight lines, thinking about also vegetation as it grows. I think that was a good one as well. We always, as an auditor, we've got to think about how big a thing's going to grow. Are we going to block sight lines into the future? Could we just open up those sight lines? I think other things that were brought up there are good. Nice things to think about. Yep, some ideas around raising it is good as well. That's more than just a tweak on the project. But really, that one was about the sight lines there. Okay, here's another coronial investigation we did, and this one again, sort of slightly similar theme. So the fatality occurred when somebody stepped from where this photo has taken and took 1 or 2 steps and then was struck by a vehicle and killed. Let me show you the view from the driver's perspective. So here it is, and that first photo was taken from there, and you can see the curb ramp there where the pedestrian stepped out from. I'll go back a little bit further so you can see a little bit more. And so we've got here a fairly high speed major arterial road, but into the slip lane there, and that's the point where the strike occurred. Now, this one was quite interesting. When you're out there on site, and again, this one, like, photos just do not do justice from this. But when you're out there on site, you've got the green man, you've got your tactile ticking away. It's a real sort of draw to step out there. And so you've got pedestrian priority, not pedestrian priority, and then back to your footpath. And I think it may have played a role in this. And the question you sort of asked is why? Why did we not just continue that pedestrian priority through, or provide something there? And unfortunately, in that one, it sort of it did cost somebody their life. Yeah, so I hope you're sort of picking up little bits and pieces about sort of clarity of priority and opening sight lines and ensuring everybody's got clear, and also managing that speed at any time pedestrians are around. Raised crossings are such a wonderful feature. Slowing vehicles is so good. One common misunderstanding about road safety audits, I flagged this from a process perspective, is that you will have clients who think that a road safety audit is a DDA compliance audit. Now, DDA is the Disability Discrimination Act, and it's a sort of enforceable act in many jurisdictions, or they've got a similar act, and it's ensuring that any facility is accessible to everybody, so that people in wheelchairs or vision impaired people or people with other mobility needs can access public facilities and other facilities. Now, the thing is that a road safety audit is not a DDA audit. But you just need to be clear that your client understands that, okay, and doesn't expect that now they've ticked that box. They're two different things. Do you pick up DDA deficiencies in a road safety audit? That's up to you as an auditor. If you believe that it presents a genuine risk of death and serious injury that meet within the risk matrix that we have as auditors, then you would put it in. But if you can't sort of make that direct line to go, I mean, you go, they've got this slightly wrong, but it'll be like that for 500 years and it won't cause an issue. But technically, it doesn't meet the Act. So you don't have any responsibility to put that into your audit, but you might, if you know the Act that well, you might make a little note, but it's probably not going to be risk rated. It's not going to be in your table and it's not going to be there. You might just a friendly note, this doesn't meet the DDA code. But DDA is quite, it covers a whole lot of other things, the height of rails, the steepness of ramp grades, the braille on buttons, those, these sorts of things. So you're, as an auditor, need to be, honing this back to road safety risks that you believe meet the level of risks that we're talking about in our audit, and making sure your client knows that they have not met the DDA Act by undertaking this audit. I'm going to jump through these. I mean, this one's just your classic of one of the things that I have. I audit with somebody who always picks up the tactile ground surface indicators do not contrast the pavement. So that's a DDA requirement. It's got a different color to the pavement. Your DDA tactiles. I think it's also got to have some things to run you into where you're meant to be going. But anyway, this one does. This one nicely contrasts the pavement, but that will more often than not, we're putting that into an audit just with to note. We don't even risk rate. We don't believe that that is anywhere near the risks of the audit findings that we've found in there in terms of actually going to present in death or serious injury. But we want to note it just to be friendly to the project team to say, hey, by the way. Okay, let's get you doing an exercise before we finish off for the day. We'll probably have time for you to do your quiz, hopefully, as well before the official end.
Quick one before we get started into that. Just one from Race asking, should the RSA look into the luminance of the tactile pavement? So you mentioned there about the contrasting elements, just ensuring that it's not blending in with the surrounding material again. But would you think that should be looking at the luminance of the tactile pavers as part of your audit?
Yeah. Not in any detail. I mean, if you happen to notice it and it's something you're concerned about, you can pop it in there to note. It's really, this is a hard one because I am not saying at all that the DDA compliance is not important. I think that's a very important thing. It's an act and it's something we need to ensure we've provided access and good facilities for everybody involved. But you need to, as an auditor, quarantine yourself to things that are probable to cause death and serious injury into the future. And a faded luminescence of a tactile paver to me is not, in most cases, going to be the big cause of death and serious injury. And nor would you be, there with, red. I can't even remember what the machine is. Is it a lux meter that you actually put down on a retroreflective pavement marker or the like to see its luminescence? Anyway,
to catch the light from the luminaire source would be the lux meter. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a machine you put onto these things and it does the same. But anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I'm saying is, very important part of a project, probably not going to appear heavily in your road safety audits. And if it does, probably most of the time going to come as a to note, not a risk item that enters it. Because it even sits sort of below low risk in that sense. But I have to leave that to you as judgment, because maybe around a hospital or something like that, it's elevated in risk. Because you go, well, actually, there are a lot of people that would need this. And now we've got enough of an issue. Anyway, let's have a look at this intersection. Get you to do a little exercise for me. What you're going to do is now be, I'm going to get you to do an existing conditions road safety audit, but I have some information about this site that we will be able to give out. No, we're not going to give out a prize. We'll just see how you go as a crash predictor. And that's what auditors are, aren't they? We predict crashes. So this, here we go, we see an intersection, and it is going to be quiz time. So Max will soon put up a poll, but not quite yet, Max. And remember, when the poll pops up on your screen, you can drag it out of the way so you can see the aerial again. And what I've done here is I've put 5 spots on this aerial, and I've put 5 crash diagrams. Now, if you do crash diagrams, you will know that a dotted line is a pedestrian. A dotted line in a crash diagram is a pedestrian. It's fairly uniformly done that way. And the big line is a car or a truck, but it's a car in all of these situations. So what I'm going to ask you is, because one of these sites has had 4 serious injury pedestrian crashes in exactly this crash type over the last 5 years. Okay, 4 in exactly the same crash. I mean, that's starting to get to quite a pattern of crashes, isn't it? Now, is that point 1 where we have a vehicle turning, a pedestrian crossing there? Point 2, a vehicle turning, a pedestrian crossing over there. Point 3, a pedestrian crossing from the island out and getting struck by the vehicle in the slip lane. 4, same thing, slightly different orientation of it. Or 5, a vehicle turning in through the keep clear and a pedestrian walking on the footpath. Okay, so you have a look at that, and I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to ponder and think about it. And then, and now Max, you can put up the poll. Yes, happy days. And you will just guess. Now, remember, you're not being marked on this. In fact, we can't even tell who votes for what. So pressure is off. And you just have a guess at which one you think is the spot. And as far as the crash data investigated, there were no crashes at the other locations. Not to say that they are free of risk, but so the poll should have popped up. Pop it in, your guesses.
Yes, the answers are coming through, Ken, so it seems to be working. So far, so good. It seems to be getting better at the moderating gig. Is it fair to assume that each of these locations would relatively have the same level of exposure for pedestrians? There wasn't one kind of pedestrian hub?
That's a really good question, Max. I would say 0.5 has a lower pedestrian, a little bit. No, you got me thinking. The one where they go straight into not a footpath doesn't have a huge a volume there either. So
okay, we've got 89% committing their answers. Just a few more to come in, and then I'll share the results.
All right, 3 more seconds and then close it off, Max.
Through 3, 2, 1. All right, let's end this poll, and I will share the results with everyone so I can see how you fared against your colleagues, cohort. Okay, so location 2 is coming as the most popular there, Ken, with 39%, and down to location 1, 25%. Location 3 and 5 both scored at 14%. Location 4 as the least likely option for those crashes to have occurred.
It's some good analysis there. Well done, everybody, and especially well done to the 11 of you that picked number 2, because that is the correct answer. Location 2. Now, I'll come back to why that is in a second, but no worries if you didn't pick location 2 in your very, very quick analysis of the intersection, because each of those I did pick and make a crash type because it had some some level of risk to it that was a bit, that was certainly there. We talked about just slip lanes and the like. But point two, and that crash at point two has something slightly different. Now, it'd be fair if it took you a while and you pondered this and looked at it and sort of understood it, that there's something different about this location. Now, I'm going to go back so I can clear out the actual thing there. So, okay, so we've got a slip lane here, and that looks right. And we've got a slip lane there, and they go around there, and this one they go around there. And this one, they come up here, and hang on, why are they turning onto a pedestrian crossing? Well, these ones turn, and they're not turning onto a pedestrian crossing, are they? The thing is that whoever's designed this intersection in the day, or for some reason or another, instead of having the pedestrian crossing go to the island and then have them cross there, they elected to go to this little sort of other big island thingy here. And what that's done is created a situation, as we talked about sort of with the slip lane, that drivers coming in here are looking up this way and they turn completely blind to anything that's happening there. It's a very odd sort of setup. And the challenge you've got as a road safety auditor is you've got to pick that from the design and try to stop them from doing that due to the risks, and stop those 4 serious injury crashes to pedestrians before they even happen, before they build it. It's got reconfigured since, but it was out there for quite a while, and then it started to present itself as the pedestrian numbers grew.
Just a quick one, was that in Victoria, Ken?
Yes, that's Cranbourne McDonald's there for those who have had their Big Mac down there. It's not like that anymore. I should get the after aerial image. So as I mentioned there, like our role as auditors is to iron this out before it's ever built. Or if we go out there, we're asked to do an existing conditions audit, we would have to try to be identifying these regardless of whether crashes had happened or not. This one, if you're asked to audit it, you're probably going to actually say, hey, this is a black spot investigation, because it's pretty obvious where the issue is here. Although they'd have quite a few vehicle to vehicle crashes, I'm sure, here. But anyway, you might be thinking to yourself, oh my God, like I'm overwhelmed here. Like, this is pretty serious stuff. Like, if they want to build something like this and I miss it, am I going to be liable? This is big with people's lives. I'm going to give you a few things to calm you down. First of all, audits take time. You're going to spend a lot of time thinking about this, looking at it. And one thing that I do as an auditor, and a lot of auditors we do, is we sort of methodically drive and walk and ride, at least in our mind, through the intersection or through the area. So you would go, okay, I'm going to start down at this route. And in my mind, I'm going to be driving straight through. And I'm driving straight through, what's going on here? Okay, no, it's pushing me into this lane. I'm going straight through. Okay, I'm going to do that again. There's a cyclist next to me. Where's the cyclist now? The cyclist is turning. Okay, the cyclist is now trying to do a right turn. How are they doing that? Where are they going? And then you go, now I'm going to do a left turn. I'm going to go into the slip lane. I'm going in here. Am I going to see this pedestrian? I've got good sight lines here. That's good. And I'm going, okay, now I'm going to do a left turn, and I'm going to go up and I'm going to do a left turn in the slip lane. And go, oh, the pedestrian is there. Or you go, okay, now cyclists. Where are the cyclists? So, you're working through each of these permutations of movement with other vehicles and their interaction, and can I see, and what's blocking that sight lines. And so if you sort of work through that as a car, you're a car going through here. Now you're a pedestrian walking along here and you want to get to here. Okay, I'm going to go here and here and here. Then you're a cyclist. I'm riding and I want to do a left turn. Yeah, as I say, it takes time. You work through it all. You really sort of go through all of that. So as I say, don't get too stressed if you miss that one in your very quick go at it, and all the others could be areas that you might like to pick up. A couple of final things here. If you can get out there at times of high activity, like the end of school, at the end of the footy match, and those sort of things, to see it operating in those environments, you really should, if it's practical at all. If it's school holidays and they need the audit report done by the end of the week or something, and you can't get out there, so be it. Or COVID, it's not the actual activity, you got to do it. But if you can see it when they've got school kids like this, you're getting better intel, better info. And we have a suite of sort of different things in the pedestrian safety space, and somebody along the line decided to bird theme pedestrian crossings, and the traffic engineers seem to have stuck to it. So we have puffin crossings, the pedestrian user friendly intelligent crossing is what it sort of acronyms out to. And that's really the, when you walk up to your house at night and the lights go on, or somebody's house, it's the same technology, just put into the traffic signals. So if there's movement on the crossing, it holds the red light for the cars until the crossing has cleared. So that's your puffin device there. Can be retrofit to traffic signals. So you might be suggesting puffins if it's an area when you see old people, or you're seeing people not, it's a big long way to cross, and that's okay if you're fit and able, but slower people, maybe suggest puffin. Toucan crossings, this is the official name. I did not make this up. It is for Toucan cross, pedestrians and cyclists. Toucan crossing, just giving legal ability for a cyclist to cross as well as a pedestrian. A pelican crossing is a pedestrian light controlled crossing. Pedestrian light controlled. So this is what a driver sees. They see a red light as the pedestrians are crossing. It goes then to a flashing orange. It flashes orange for a while, just so drivers are a bit more alert. If anybody's lagging behind, then it goes to green. Pedestrian light controlled crossing. This sign was on like one of those websites, funniest road signs in the world, and came in at like number 5 or something. Humped Pelican Crossing makes complete sense to me. Apparently the rest of the world finds it amusing. We do have Pegasus crossings as well. A Pegasus crossing is obviously for riding a horse. A few reasons for that in Australia. One is the height. There you can see the mounted rider can do that. Second of all is that it is a little legal nuance that a horse is a vehicle and thus must have its own sort of crossing symbol and the like for legal status. Random road rule for you, Max. Did you know that it is illegal to ride a horse when you're intoxicated, because that is technically drink driving? But it is not illegal to ride an intoxicated horse.
Very good. Very good.
I see. I missed the in-person laughter at my it's not a joke, it's true, but my witty
I wouldn't advocate either options though.
No, I'm pretty sure it's illegal to get a horse drunk, so you'd have to be the horse drinking by itself. Okay, another reason you don't need to get too concerned about missing things as an auditor. I mean, you've got a lot of hard work to do, and you're going to build your knowledge, and you're going to get better and better. You're in a team. Okay, and you make sure you partner up with people who have complementary skill sets, are good in other areas. They'll see things. You're a team. Work as a team. And also, I haven't told you yet, there are these things called checklists in the back of Part 6A. And we're changing their name in the next revision of the Austroads Guide to prompt lists. because checklists gave the impression that if you just went through each one of those dot points, you would cover everything. That is not the case, but they do cover a raft of things to help you, to prompt your thinking. So you go, okay. And there's a section on pedestrians and, sight lines to pedestrians, and will vehicles have sight lines, and are vehicles turning at any point where they can always see pedestrians, and where, so you're getting guidance, you're getting that. And so people, when they start out auditing, they will be going through the checklist, the prompt list. A lot of things they'll be going, that's not applicable, because they're trying to, the checklists are trying to cover every road scenario out there, but it helps you and guides your thinking. Okay, final quick quiz, Max. Just a final one, a couple of questions, and then we will close it off, and people can spend the last 2 minutes doing the quiz if they want.
Fantastic. So we've got, which of the following is not one of the 3 infrastructure strategies for pedestrian safety? So we've got prevention, segregation, separation, integration. So earlier on in this presentation,
cast their mind all the way back to the start of pedestrians.
The answers are coming in very quick. I think everyone's eager for the webinar to close. Yeah,
all right.
Really.
Give it a couple more seconds, have a guess, and let's close off the poll there. I think
3, 2, 1. Yeah, we'll end that there, and I'll share the results with everyone. Prevention, the clear majority winner there, Ken.
Yep, that's correct. Yep, so segregation, separation, integration are the strategies. Prevention is probably in the segregation if you're trying to stop them getting into an area. So the infrastructure strategies. Okay, that's it for today. You do have a quiz to do, don't they, Max?
That's correct. There's another quiz. Thanks for everyone that's already got involved in Module 1 quiz. Looks like we've got a fair portion of you already got involved in that, which is good. Similar quiz for this time around. Let us know if you have any technical issues, but other than that, we'll catch up next week.
Yeah, and you're going to have a little assignment to do after the end of next week's session. Thanks, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the session.
Have a great day.
Bye.
See ya.